You are now listening to Protecting Your Nest with board-certified family medicine and obesity medicine specialist Dr. Tony Hampton. For more, visit drtonyhampton.com. Welcome to the Protecting Your Nest podcast. Today, we will talk about restoring our hair naturally, because for so many people, the possibility of restoring hair loss is something that they've pretty much given up on. So today, we want to restore hope, the hope that yes, your hair can be restored, and yes, it can be done naturally without the many side effects of conventional treatment. As a heads up, I will be asking today's guest how the themes of the Protecting Your Nest podcast impact our ability to restore and maintain healthy hair. I will be asking about nutrition, supplements, sleep, stress, organisms, toxic exposures, as well as how our hair impacts our relationships, our thoughts, and even our life experiences. Today's guest is Mahryah Shain. Mahryah is the CEO of More Hair Naturally and has been with the company since 2003. His company offers all natural solutions for hair loss using probiotics, amino acids, and peptide complexes. They've revolutionized the hair industry with the perfect blend of nature and science, and their goal is to help people like you and me live a better life by increasing our confidence, our self-esteem, and just how we feel about ourselves in general. And with that, Mahryah, I welcome you to the Protecting Your Nest podcast.
Hey, thanks. Happy to be here, man. That was a nice intro.
Well, I appreciate that. You deserve a nice intro. And I'll be honest with you, Mahryah. So many people are interested in this topic, including myself. I keep a short haircut. In fact, my barber, to share a brief little story, I actually saw my barber recently. And when my hair was starting to thin out a little bit, he said, "You have a choice, Doc. You can either have high grass, which will allow you to see the patches, or you can keep it low and you won't be able to notice the patches as well." So one of the reasons why I've always kept my hair low is because I didn't want the patches to be visible.
Sure.
But so even when I thought about bringing you to the podcast, I said, yeah, this is something I can learn. I have a lot of people of color, women in my community that I serve, having tons of hair issues because they use a lot of chemicals over the years. And I've learned that other cultures use chemicals in their hair as well. So I think it's going to be nice to have this conversation, because if we're going to protect our nest, we have to think about how we look on the outside and what we do to our bodies on the inside, both of which I'm sure affects our hair. So let's start our conversation by you sharing with my audience the inspiration that led to you focusing on hair restoration.
Yeah, absolutely. So everything you're saying, I love. It's so right. Like, we were meant to talk. It's so right into like our company philosophy, my whole philosophy, the whole reason we're here. It's just totally is a perfect mesh. So my entire, every man in my family is bald, 100%. It just generations back. All the men, cousins, uncles, brothers, everyone's bald. I'm happy to have what I have. I feel like I'm winning in my family gene line here. But so my father, he started losing his hair. This was back maybe like mid 90s. He was losing his hair, and we've always believed that, your body it's what you got, and you got to take care of it. You got to support it, and you got to do it right. And that nature can provide everything that you need to get your body, because our bodies are meant to live. We are meant to live. We're meant to be strong. We're meant to go out and have an impact on the world. That's what we're meant to do. And when our bodies aren't doing that, it's because there's something off. But I do believe that nature has everything that it needs to put our bodies back into tune with itself, so that they can operate at a maximum capacity. I mean, we've evolved over millions of years with the earth. everything that's there is meant to keep us alive and support us moving forward. So we've always had that philosophy and approach. But when my father started losing his hair, there was nothing on the market other than the conventional drug products, the minoxidils, finasteride, bepicias, all of which were invented in the 70s. And they're still used today, exactly in the same form. They have better labels, better marketing, but it's the same repackaged drugs that were brought to market in the 70s. Now, I mean, there's always been like home remedies, like rub an onion on your head, things like that. But I mean, it's definitely not going to help your social life.
Right.
You might get great hair, but it's not going to help your social life. No, actually,
Yeah.
there is a little validity in that. The sulfur in onions actually is very important for hair growth, but you're not going to get that sulfur input by rubbing an onion on your head. But there is a
Yeah.
logic in that as well. So basically, my father started going down the drug route, which was very surprising. And he started getting side effects. His body started hurting. He was losing energy. He actually started developing breasts, which is not intended. He did not want that, because it was messing with his hormone levels. And so he's like, whoa, this is not cool. And we were all like, this isn't good for you. You got to stop. And my mother's Italian, and we have some family out in the Lake Como area of Italy. And there's a small lab out there that was doing some really interesting stuff in the natural hair loss field. And so we got some of their products and we're like, and we start getting results, and they weren't like the most incredible results, but they were results and they were better than anything else that was going on. And so long short story, my family ended up becoming the distributors for that company in the United States. And that was our intro into the hair loss field. So what happened was this product was great and it was getting results, but the results weren't strong enough and fast enough, and the hair wasn't coming back thick enough either. And so we're like, okay, it's working, but what's happening? Why isn't it? In this point, we started learning about the mechanics and understanding and figuring out like what actually is causing it. And so we started researching. We're like, okay, science did not stop researching hair loss in 1970. Why are there no products on the market reflecting the current innovations that are happening in our world and that have been happening for the past 30 years? So we started looking into this. And what we started finding these incredible results that are happening in laboratory studies all over the world with stem cells, amino acids, probiotics, other botanical extracts that in laboratory studies were creating these amazing results. They weren't in products, but in the lab studies, these were things were like, wow. So what we did was we found a big lab here in California where we're based that it's an FDA lab that specializes in medical grade cosmetics. So it's a very strict laboratory environment. And we went to them, we're like, listen, we have all these studies and we want to take all the ingredients from all these studies and put them in one product, but we want to do it at their full clinical strength. We want to have the same strength that was producing the results in these studies. Is that possible? And it took about 3 years and they were able to do it. We were able to do it. And so at that point, we moved all of our operations to California. And so everything's USA made now. And we started producing, that was our initial flagship product, More Hair Naturally 9. And then from that point, we started producing other products with that same philosophy. We're like, okay, what is the goal we want to accomplish? And then we research what is producing those results around the world in studies in the natural field. And then we source all those ingredients and we put them into a product. So since that initial release, all our subsequent products have had that same research philosophy attached to it.
Perfect. Well, you're talking to a doctor, so research is that resonates with me. That anything we recommend is evidence-based and supported by science. I personally, when I noticed my hair was thinning, I did use Rogaine for a short while, probably not even 6 months, because the the dry hair, itching. I just couldn't tolerate it. So I just kind of made a decision. Michael Jordan's a handsome guy. So,
Sure.
if I don't have to have hair on my head, it's okay.
Yeah.
But what really resonates with me is that, first of all, for anybody out there who is assuming that all that needs to be done to make things happen in the world and make the world a better place, don't make that assumption, because you guys said there's got to be something else. And I really appreciate that. And I mentioned in the intro that I wanted to touch on my Nest and Rope acronym. One of the Rope has an E for life experiences, and your life experience of having a family who had a problem to solve, and then doing the research. That experience then led to you guys creating this great product. So I really appreciate that. And I'm just, again, grateful that there will be people who will hear this or watch this, and they're going to have another path, or, they're going to have some hope restored. So I really appreciate that. But let's talk a little bit about, just for context, there are different types of hair loss. So maybe you can just touch on what the different types of hair loss are.
Yeah, great. So there's a bunch of different causes. There's like stress is a cause, big cause of hair loss. Medical procedures is a cause of hair loss. Medications are a big cause of hair loss. Extreme styling is a major cause of hair loss, as well as nutrient deficiencies, environmental toxins. All these can cause hair loss, but there's an overall arcing hair loss. Like those are all extremely important causes of hair loss, but the general, like the big cause that most people have, it's the result of DHT follicle buildup on the follicle. Now, I will explain that in a very clear and concise way, because no one wants to get too deep into science.
Right.
So essentially, DHT is the major medically recognized cause of hair loss. And now what this is when our bodies produce testosterone, the male hormone testosterone, it creates a byproduct. As it's breaking it down, it creates a byproduct called dihydrotestosterone, which is DHT. That's all that is. So now generally, this is just excreted through the body, no big deal. However, as it passes by the hair follicle, it gets stuck in these little potholes on the follicle. These are DHT receptor sites. Now, here's an interesting thing. These are the inherited trait of hair loss. It's not, hair loss is not inherited. What's inherited are these little potholes on the follicle itself. Now, the way that works is it's kind of a balancing act between your testosterone level and these potholes. So if you inherited just a very small amount of these potholes, but you have a lot of DHT, you're still going to have hair loss, because you're producing a lot of testosterone, which in turn is going to clog these follicles. But you might have inherited a ton of these potholes, but have very little DHT in your body,
Right.
in which case, or testosterone, in which case you won't experience hair loss till much later in life, which is why women, when they experience hair loss, generally it's at a much later age than a man, because they produce less testosterone. So they have the inherited trait of hair loss, which is those little potholes. But since they're not producing a lot of testosterone, they're not seeing that it's taking a long time for enough DHT to clog the follicle to experience thinning hair. This is also why women during menopause will, or extreme hormonal times of hormonal fluctuation, such as pregnancy or postpartum or menopause, while they'll experience shedding in those times, because they're producing more testosterone. So what happens is when the DHT gets stuck in these little potholes on the follicle, it cuts off the blood flow to the follicle. So over time, as more and more DHT gets stuck, less and less blood starts flowing to the follicle. The follicle gets weaker and weaker, the hair gets thinner and thinner, and then it eventually dies. So in a nutshell, that's what's happening. And once a follicle's dead, it's dead. That's it. There's nothing you can do. Nothing's going to bring it back. And you can tell you have a dead follicle if the scalp is shiny and bald. That's an indication that the follicles have died, in which case there's no product that can help. So the goal, the actual the ideal goal is to get that DHT off the follicle so that the blood can start flowing back to the follicle itself. And that's our concept is we want that DHT to get off the follicle so the blood can start flowing back to the follicle itself. And then at the same time, we start bombarding that follicle with stem cells, probiotics, amino acids. So we're rebuilding the follicle with the blood flowing back to it, and we're also rebuilding the follicle with the ingredients from the products. So to fortify the growth, because the only thing that's going to grow hair is a healthy, strong follicle.
Cool. So if you have somebody who has hair loss that's isolated to like a little bald spot in the middle of their head, that's shiny and bald, is that person going to benefit from your product when the rest of the hair looks okay, but there's a bald spot in one spot?
As long as there's still hair there, we can help. But if there's no hair, there's no product that's going to help.
That's gotcha. Okay, that's helpful. What about I think about in the African American community, a lot of times they will put weaves in their hair. I mean, in fact, I don't know what it was like. Maybe it just happened when I wasn't paying attention, but they have these literally stores as big as like what Sears used to look like, and they just sell hair products, which is amazing. Yeah. But a lot of it is hair, and the hair is heavy, and then sometimes they get damaged from the pulling. Mm-hmm. In that setting, are those types of clients or patients going to benefit from this product?
Yeah, we help a lot of African American women primarily because, unfortunately, I mean, the chemicals used in stylings are getting better. They're becoming less harsh. But a lot of older African American women, when they call us, who have been using treatments on their hair their whole life, like those treatments from the 70s, 80s, 90s, they're brutal. They are brutal, and they're so harsh on the scalp and the hair, and so we have and now they're less mild, but they're still really harsh. And weaves are, they can look great, but the pulling on the scalp over time, it's going to cause what's called traction alopecia, and it is an issue. It's a very real issue that will definitely cause your hair to thin, if not fall out, if not just kill the follicles completely. I mean, I'm happy that there's always a movement. It feels like it's getting stronger for African American to have more of a natural hairstyle. Just because, I mean, I'm a white guy, but I think it looks great. You know what I mean? It's not really my place to say that. I think it looks great on African American women, but it's definitely like healthier for the scalp.
Yeah,
definitely healthier for the hair, and for overall, if you could avoid any sort of harsh chemicals on your hair and body, ideally that's a better, that's a better lifestyle. But most of our African American women, they come to us for that reason. The majority of them, most of them we can help. Some are too far gone, like the follicles have died as a result of these extreme treatments, or years and years and years and years of weeds or tight braids and stuff.
That's
like
right.
If somebody is choosing to have that style, then they should take breaks.
Right.
At least take a break. Like maybe take like 6 months off and just let the hair relax and heal up a little bit, and then go back. But go back and forth. But because when women come to us who've been doing it for years, there's just a lot of damage, and it's hard to help. But one of the things that we do have we have a couple of different products that we like to use together. One of them does focus on rebalancing the scalp's microbiome. And the reason why we found that's very, very important is because when the hair is getting weak, any sort of non-optimum scalp condition can impede healthy growth. So that's any sort of dryness, itchiness, flakiness, tightness, and anything like that. But a lot of harsh chemicals will will actually cause excess, will create more oil, because what's happening is they completely dry the scalp out, and our bodies will freak out because there's supposed to be a natural oil level in our hair and scalps. And when it's not there, our body goes into overdrive to produce excess to make up for what's not there. So when these harsh chemicals get placed on your scalp and your hair, and completely dry it and strip it of its natural oils, it actually has the reverse effect of making your hair more oily, in which case it starts clogging your pores and making growth very difficult. So by using probiotics to rebalance the microbiome of the scalp, it creates a healthier growth environment for the hair.
So it sounds like it's something. So are we talking about something we apply to the hair and something that we take orally? Because most of the times we think oral use of probiotics.
No, not with us. We currently don't offer any sort of oral treatments. All of our products are topical.
Topical, okay.
Now it's interesting on the topical probiotics, because that's something I haven't really heard so much about. I was the same way. You think gut health, which is incredibly important and should always be addressed and always paid attention to, because that's kind of as the more you learn, we're finding that's kind of key to everything. And in terms of hair and tying it to your hair, your overall body health is going to affect your hair, period. But in terms of probiotics topically applied, I started seeing it in like skin creams and face creams, and like in burn treatments. I started seeing it, and then I started seeing it for scalp treatments as well, in studies, and that's when it really occurred, because we were developing an additional product, because one of the things that happens when the hair starts to get thin is that the growth cycle gets too short, which is why a lot of people, when their hair starts to thin, they can't grow their hair long. That's because the growth cycle has actually gotten too short to produce hair. So we need to find a way to address that aspect as well, because here we are rebuilding the hair, rebuilding the follicle, and we're getting this strong, healthy follicle that's all ready to produce hair again, but it doesn't have the space to grow. So we're like, well, how can we fix that? So that's when we started finding these other sets of, probiotics, amino acids, and peptide complexes and stem cells that help address the actual hair shaft to help elongate that cycle. So in one aspect, we're saying grow. On the other one aspect, we're saying build. And the other aspect, we're saying go for it. Now kick into overdrive. But when we were making that second product, we're like, what if we just added something to rebalance the scalp? And so when we started looking into it, we found that it wasn't a big deal. It didn't take a lot to actually just simply rebalance the scalp. And so we added in those extra ingredients to do that.
Yeah, what I love about this, and we kind of chatted a little bit about this before we started talking on camera, is trying to understand, why the hair is not growing. So it's all about root cause, and that's really the foundation of what I do as a low carb doctor, is why are people struggling? Why are you sick in the first place? Why is my hair not growing? And then finding a way to get those toxins out of your life, get the things that are harming you out of your life, and then allowing the body to do what it'll do naturally. One of the things you mentioned, and as I did research on you in the past, you talked a lot about stem cells, and could you touch on what role the stem cells play in this natural product?
Yeah. And actually, let me just address something right now that can sometimes be an elephant in the room when you're talking about stem cells. We don't use any controversial stem cells. A lot of people hear stem cells and they go right to, like Planned Parenthood, and they go right to no. That's not where all our stem cells are botanical, except for one, which is an adipose-derived stem cell, which is in our More Hair Naturally 9. And adipose-derived stem cells come from adult fat cells, which are donated, much like blood or plasma. It comes from adults 18 to 35. Now, the reason why because I was skeptical. I was like, I don't having a human stem cell in the product is just going to open the doors to a lot of misconceptions and questions. And I thought it'd be easier just to not have that. But the research was so compelling on the effect of adipose derived stem cells on the hair. I mean, if you just Google adipose derived stem cells and hair loss, the first couple of things that come up are NIH studies from the government on the effect that these stem cells have on hair. I mean, it's amazing. So that's the only reason we included it in there.
Mm-hmm.
And stem cells in general have they're adaptive, meaning they can go into an environment and adapt to that environment and help support it. They're kind of like these little miracles of life and how they work, which is
Yeah.
why we start focusing on those.
Yeah, stem cells are very smart, and again, they are foundational, and they can pretty much go and do whatever it needs to do. So that's what stem cells are amazing.
Yeah.
I think for some of my followers, they're going to want to kind of know, the process, because when I went to your website, I saw a kind of a range of options, right?
Right.
So, and I also saw a quiz. So I
Yeah.
want you to speak about what is the quiz for, and then how does a person know if I need to be spending $100 or $1,000 or whatever? And like, what's going to determine that?
Okay, that's a really good question. So when someone goes to morehairnaturally.com, that's the website, we have phone numbers everywhere. And the reason why I made certain to have phone numbers everywhere is for your exact question.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's really different for everybody. If you're a man in your 50s, you've been losing hair since you were 20, you're going to need to go aggressive for about a year, and then you can start weaning off and then stop. If you're in your 30s and you just started losing, maybe you want to go aggressive for 3 months, cut back to a smaller program for 3 months, and then stop. If you're a female and you're going through menopause, you're going to want to go aggressive for about 6 months and then go, not so aggressive for about another 3-4 months, and then you can stop. If you're a woman and you're having postpartum, maybe it's just 3 months. When I say aggressive, it's using both the More Hair Naturally 9 and the Hair and Scalp Synergy together. You apply one in the morning, one in the evening. Those are the products that address the rebuilding and the scalp and the actual, hair growth cycle. So it really all depends. Generally speaking, a man, an older male who's been losing for a long time is realistically looking at a year program aggressive, because no one's going to see results until at least 3 to 6 months, because it's a healing. We're trying to heal the hair, and we want to take you through 2 growth cycles. Is our goal. A growth cycle is the shedding, resting, growth phase. So the hair, it's growth, rest, shedding. So the hair grows, it rests, it sheds, then it grows, it rests, it sheds. It's just the natural cycle of life. And we want to take you through at least 2 of those. Now, people will see results sooner than the 3 to 6 month period. Like, what you'll start to notice in that first month is you'll start to notice less shedding, and you just start to notice your hair looks better. You're like, you catch a glimpse of yourself in the mirror. You're like, hey, I'm having a good hair day. And you'll just have more of those consistently. But you're not really going to see any real change until that 3 to 6 month mark. Women tend to see results faster, mainly because women take action faster than men do. A man will procrastinate for 20 years, and just one day they're almost bald and like, I got to do something. Where a woman will start, thinning a little bit, and she'll do something immediately, which is good because it's easier to help. There'll be less dead follicles, and it's just easier to help. But ultimately, though, there's a big picture at play here too, though. Like, We help people with their hair. We help people get thicker, fuller hair when their hair is thinning. But it's bigger than that. It's connected to self-esteem. It's connected to confidence. It's connected to taking responsibility for your life. Is what it's because, like, when you have a problem or a perceived problem, and you take an action to fix that problem, and you get a positive result, then you have confidence to go forward in your life and take another action to fix something else in your life. And this just keeps happening. And the more you take action and you get a positive results, the more confidence you have in yourself, because you know that you're able to make a decision and it's going to work. And that just makes you stronger as a human being. And that makes you stronger. And when you're strong as a human being, you have a positive effect on your friends, on your church, on your family, on your community. And that positivity and that confidence rolls off into the next person. And I mean, when you walk into a room and there's someone there who's just beaming, you actually start standing up a little straighter and you start feeling a little better yourself. So we're looking to create that snowball effect, because I'll tell you, people are good. People are good. And the stronger you can make a person, and the stronger they become, and the more in tune they become to who they are, they're going to change the world. They're going to change the society. They're going to make a positive impact. So our ultimate goal is to sort of create that snowball effect, or at least be part of it in some fashion.
Yeah.
So
Well, I appreciate that.
Really where we're coming from.
Yeah, that's remarkable. I mean, when I created my NEST acronym, which starts with the nutrition part, I've always had a conflict in my brain. Is it the N for the nutrition, or is it the T for how we think as the most important part? And I still wrestle with that. But the thoughts that we have are so critical in our success. But sometimes our thoughts are a reflection of how we see ourselves and how we feel about ourselves. And that's why, again, for those who care enough to want to work on their hair, we just got to be able to give them some options. And what I found is that if we can come up with options that don't involve a lot of chemicals, it's probably going to be more sustainable. What you said that was the most shocking, I think, is that you said that you stop at some point. That doesn't sound like a sustainable business model, but it does sound like you're actually healing. I mean, if you can actually stop using a product at some point, then that tells me that I've been healed. Now, let me ask you this. Is it then necessary from a maintenance perspective? I may need to go back to the product down the road because maybe I'm doing some things that cause more harm, rather it's using a relaxer, or maybe I'm going to periodically use those extensions and things like that. So what's your thoughts on what's a typical outcome? People heal using the product and their hair grows, and then do they need to come back to it at some point?
Well, yes, and it's different for everybody, but it's essentially it's a yes. And the reason, so in the example you gave of somebody who's using chemicals or extreme styling, they should always be doing a light program to counterbalance that. They don't have to go extreme. They don't have to spend a lot of money. They don't have to do it every single day, but they should be doing something to heal the follicle, heal the scalp, and heal the damage caused by those chemicals and by the traction and the pooling. So yes, it doesn't have to be extreme, and it can be inexpensive because they're extending the life of the bottle. So over time it becomes inexpensive, but they need to always be doing something. Somebody who's dealing with hair loss or thinning. So we do want to get that DHT off the follicle, and we use hyaluronic acid, which is found in your joints, your eyeballs. It's found throughout your body, and it's a very moisturizing substance. A lot of face creams have it, and moisturizers have it, and the reason they have it is because it's very moisturizing and it's very healing. We use a very high grade medical concentration of it. And what it does is it will coat the follicle, and the DHT can slide off, and then it leaves a coat where the DHT can't come back on. But it's not permanent, So you use it, you stop, and then a couple years down the road, you'll see it thinning starts up again. You just get back onto another program, another maintenance program. So that is a very real thing. But you're not dependent on the product. See, the thing with minoxidil, which is the most like a Rogaine, Rogaine uses minoxidil. A lot of these products are minoxidil. What that does, it's a stimulant. So its goal is to force the blood back to the follicle. So it just forces it through the DHT buildup, through the membrane into the follicle. So that's, if it works, that's why it's work. It doesn't work for everybody, but if it does, that's why. Now, the problem with that is you're 100% dependent on the drug causing that. So the moment you stop, you lose all your results, because the moment you stop, that blood has ceased to be forced to the follicle. So your body's now dependent on this drug, so that you have to use for life. Some people see results, some don't, and you're risking, the listed side effects that are on the box. Which we talk to a lot of people, and a lot of people we talk to either don't want to risk the side effects, or they've experienced the side effects, like my father, and they can't have that in their life.
Okay. So I've seen other supplements like biotin and saw palmetto.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on those two?
Great. Those are great. Yeah. Supplements are great. Supplements are great because they're natural vitamins and minerals that your body needs anyways to support itself. So that's very helpful. And again, you're taking a positive action that's just going to make you stronger. Vitamins are not going to address the DHT on the follicle. That's just not going to happen with a vitamin. Yeah. And you don't want to alter your DHT levels. There are vitamins that are DHT suppressors. You don't want to do that, because at that point you are messing with your hormones. And our bodies are connected in ways that we still don't understand. So if you mess with a hormone, you don't know what else you're messing with in your body. You interject a foreign substance into your body that alters your body chemistry. It's going to have ramifications that you don't even know, and you don't have a way to know that, because we are this amazing synergistically connected machine. Everything affects everything. So you change something, you don't know how it's going to affect the rest of your body. And there's really no way to know that until, suddenly something randomly starts hurting and you don't know why,
When you're helping people, they call and they are trying to figure out what program is best for them. My Nest talks about nutrition, exercise, less stress, more sleep, and thoughts. Recovering from trauma. Obviously, if you have trauma, you're going to probably have some hair loss just thinking about it.
Big time, major.
So first, I guess my question is, when a person is in front of you and you have a great product for them that will help them heal, but then they have these other root causes of why they struggle. So maybe starting with stress. So what do you do with that? Like if they come to you and say, hey, and you guys have kind of asked the right questions, you realize this person has a lot of stress. How do you advise people so that they can both benefit from the product and deal with the stress issue that just, became the issue that's the foundation?
Yeah, well, okay. So, people don't have to call. A lot of people don't like to call. You can just go to our website and purchase a program.
Just get started.
Read it and just purchase a program that you feel is comfortable and get started. And then you can, continue your program as you need to. But when someone calls, we assess what's happening, and we determine what kind of program they'll need to achieve realistic results and in what time frame those results can be achieved. So we recommend that. Then we look at it. If somebody is having a really stressful time in their life, we look at, how they could possibly, change that if they can. And if we can help, we will. But, sometimes we can't. Sometimes it's the death of a spouse,
Right.
and it's just something someone's going to have to go through. COVID was very rough for everybody, but it was hard for us communicating to our clients as well because, people are out of work. People are, their business is closed. They're not making income. It's incredibly stressful, and there's not much we can do beyond just giving an ear, and just being a supportive ear at that time and place.
Yeah. But that's helpful because sometimes just knowing there's a connection between how I'm thinking and my hair loss or the stress I just experienced. It's normal to have issues where you may have hair loss when you're under stress. And even when because you're on a low carb, doctor podcast. And even when people go low carb, keto, etc., it's a stressor to the body because it's a change, right? And to be honest with you, I often have people having issues with their hair in those circumstances as well. So I just think that that's really important to kind of point out. So let's go back to this. So the question around stress, there are so many people who will have stress, and because they have stress, they may experience hair loss. There are people who don't get enough sleep, and because they don't get enough sleep, which is a stressor, they may have hair loss. And so I guess let's touch on that a little bit. It sounds like those are risk factors for a person having hair loss. So when you're having an interaction with a patient in those settings, how do you assist them so that the medicine, I wouldn't want to call it the natural treatment would work, because you got to deal with the stress if it's going to work, I assume.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times just knowing the cause and knowing that, like, oh, I'm suddenly losing my hair because I'm under incredible amounts of stress. A lot of time that in itself has therapeutic value to it, because like, oh, there's nothing wrong with me. Oh, my future is not bald. Oh, it's not a genetic thing. Oh, I can fix it. Just knowing that brings some relief to the situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I can believe that. Now, again, I think about nutrition, exercise, less stress, more sleep, how we think. But when it comes to nutrition, right, there's got to be some things that we can eat that are helpful for our hair, and maybe even supplements. So talk a little bit about diet, what things in our diet may help our hair, and maybe what supplements may help our hair.
Yeah, so important. And this is something we talk to our clients about. We always check diet, always, when we have them on the phone. And the reason why is because it's a major factor. I mean, when our bodies are working well, everything's working right. It's just how it goes. It's how we're made. So there are foods that are very important to have in the diet for hair, such as making sure you're getting enough vitamin A, like from yams, or iron, which you can get from spinach, or liver's wonderful if you can eat it. It's quite good for your hair as well. Omega-3s are great, like a salmon, like a nice fatty salmon. Seafood's tricky though because of the mercury. And the mercury will deplete your body of zinc, which is a very important fat. Well, first of all, mercury is straight up poison, but also it will deplete your body of zinc, which will affect your hair greatly. Hydration is a big factor. Drinking enough water. Fats from nuts are wonderful. What else is a good food? Basically, stay away from sugars.
Yes.
Sugars are not good at all.
They're not our friend.
Processed foods are terrible.
That's right.
If you're gonna eat bread, we say eat a bread that's water, flour, yeast, salt. If you're gonna do that, that should be your bread. Don't you know, stay away from your crazy ingredients
Yeah.
on products. The simplest you can eat, the best. But we do
Yeah.
recommend, processed foods. Sugars are awful. The carbs are bad because they turn into sugars.
Hmm.
So
That's
we
right.
we we definitely are like, if you can, do your best on that. So yeah, diet's a big thing. Also, there's a lot of specialty diets out there, like that that might be great, might make you feel great. Like some people are vegans and they function very well as a vegan. I personally don't, but a lot of
Hmm.
people do. But when you're eating like that kind of diet, you have to be very conscious to make sure that you're getting like some nice fats, which you can get from
Hmm.
like avocados. Avocados are wonderful. Coconuts are wonderful. You want to make sure you're getting like enough fats, and you want to make sure you're getting enough proteins as well. The keto diet, on the other hand, um, oddly causes hair loss. Uh,
Wow. Yeah, well, I know I mentioned it earlier that when
yeah,
some of my patients are transitioning to that, they may have some because a lot of my followers are low carb, keto,
yeah,
carnivore, and I find that some will, not all, but a few may struggle with that. Although I do see that there's recovery. So
yeah,
so talk more about that because it seems like they recover, but give me some of your thoughts on that.
yeah. I mean, it's an interesting diet because everything about keto seems pretty much right. When you read about it, you're like, oh, this is a good way to eat here. Very simple, very clean. But it does. We have a lot of people who are on the keto diet and they are experiencing thinning hair, but it's okay because we can definitely help counteract that, and we do. Um, but it's just part of the keto diet, and not for everybody. Not for everybody. I shouldn't say that across the
Yeah.
board, but
Yeah.
it's part of it.
Yeah, I think it's just awareness. Like now, for a guy that does low carb keto and carnivore as a living, I can
Yeah,
definitely say that it's something that happens, and not a lot of people, but it can happen. And
yeah,
I don't know if it's the stress of the diet change or not. But the good news is, again, for me in my practice, most people have recovered nicely. But it'd be nice to recover with some help. So I think
yeah,
having a way to address that uh, is very important, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you to this podcast because when we struggle, what do we need to do to mitigate it? And then hopefully we'll get even more clarity, and maybe there's a way to go into certain dietary patterns and mitigate that risk because you know that, oh, okay, this may be a thing that may happen. Let's do this to mitigate it because it's all about risk reward, right? So
yeah,
if I'm a diabetic and a low carb diet is the way I reverse my type 2 diabetes, I may then want to then understand, well, if there's this risk for hair loss, I need to know what I need to do to not have that because the benefit of the diet may be greater. So I think that's kind of how I tend to approach things. I also want my vegans to be able to eat that way as well. But they need to understand, the omega-3 is going to be much better from a animal source as opposed to a plant source. It just is what it is. So if I'm going to get sufficient omega-3, I may have to reconsider that and maybe supplement or do what's necessary. So those are all very helpful. And it sounds like your product does its thing. You don't necessarily ask people to supplement beyond that. Pretty much, they just go with the product.
yeah. We encourage people to eat well, um,
Mm-hmm.
mainly because it makes them stronger.
Mm-hmm.
We do it like we have a bigger approach here. We do it talking about hair like it's going to help your hair, but we know it's not just going to help their hair. It's going to help their energy. It's going to help
Mm-hmm.
their sleep. It's going to help their focus. It's going to
Mm-hmm.
help their overall health. It's going to help everything. We know that. We don't necessarily push that because it's a little overwhelming sometimes for people. So we frame it as like, yeah, this is for your hair. It's going to help your hair, but we know it's so much bigger than that.
That's right.
But if we
That's
could
right.
if we could essentially, trick, I'm doing air quotes for those people listening, because it's not really tricking. We could trick someone into doing something for their hair, but we know, oh, this isn't just going to fix their hair. This is going to fix their life,
Hmm.
then
That's fair.
we'll try to push that through.
All right, cool. Is this a natural product? So if I'm on medication, anything that people need to be worried about in terms of interactions with their medications?
That's a perfect question because in America, most people are on medications, and
Right.
we talked, and a lot of medications have the side effect of hair loss.
Hmm.
And that's not a secret. They just do. It's on their thing. It's published.
Yeah.
So we have many clients who are on medications, and they use us to counteract the side effects of those medications because, one, we're all natural. We're not systemic, meaning we don't enter the blood. So we're not going to interfere or negatively react with any of the medications that they're taking. So, and it's a whole range from antidepressants to chemo to, blood pressure to, diabetes to there's all kinds of medications that can cause thinning hair. And
Hmm.
we work with people like that so they can keep their medications, they can comfortably keep their medications going without having to be concerned or have that extra stress. They're already dealing with something massive.
That's
So
right.
why do they need to have the stress of hair loss and thinning on top of that? So we just want to take that off their plate so they don't have to be concerned about that, and they can just stay on their path to healing or functioning or coping.
My wife loves to get her hair done because they wash her hair and massage her hair. So,
Everyone loves that.
right. Yeah. I love seeing those cute babies when they're having their hair washed, assuming they don't want to fuss about the
Yeah.
hair being washed, but they just sit there and they're like in heaven.
Oh,
So
sure.
is there any benefit of scalp massage in terms of stimulating the hair, stimulating the follicles? Any benefit of that?
Absolutely. 100%. Yes. We as part of our application process, we say, you hold our nozzle as close to the scalp as possible, spray just enough to saturate those thinning areas, and
Hmm.
then you massage it in for 30 seconds. And by massage, it's move the scalp against the skull. And part
Hmm.
of that, because the goal is with the goal of increasing blood circulation. Now,
Hmm.
part of the reason we say that is to get someone to include that scalp massage as part of their daily routine, because
Hmm.
it's very beneficial for your hair, it's very beneficial for your scalp to do that. So if they can make that part of the application process, then it's just going to be an overall lifestyle, improvement and change.
Cool. Well, I'll let her know to keep getting her hair massages, and
Yes.
I
And
think that's
somehow
going to
though, I'll
be.
tell you though, it doesn't feel as good when you do it to yourself.
I'll receive that.
Yeah.
If I let's just say someone wants to give a gift of your product for a family member who they feel would benefit. How does that work? Is there like how do they go about doing that? Because I could imagine someone's checking this out and they have a family member who's struggling. They're like, man, it'd be nice to get this in front of them. What would be the path for them? Would they need to know more about the family member to get started? Would they just get some type of uh, a coupon book, or what? How would they go about doing it?
Well, you know, they could just buy it. They just go to morehairnaturally.com and buy it and then give it to them. They or her, they could call and talk to us. We have a lot of moms call. A
Hmm.
lot
Right.
of moms call. It's wonderful to see that the mom support and love out there. A lot of moms call for their sons and will buy fairly large programs actually for their son.
Hmm.
But we
Hmm.
always emphasize when somebody's buying it for a gift, you have to make sure the person wants it.
Right.
Because if they don't use it and they don't apply it, it's not going to work.
That's right.
It's not
That's
going to
right.
work. It does
That's right.
require a commitment, an easy commitment. It's like 30 seconds a day. It dries. You put it on, massage it in, and then go about your day. It's not a
Hmm.
big commitment, but that commitment has to be there.
Okay,
for
cool.
results to be seen and achieved.
All right,
So
cool.
it's wonderful that people purchase it as a gift for family members and loved ones, but they also have to feel confident that that person's actually going to use it for it to have any sort of success and results.
Okay, cool. So as you think about your vision for the company and any takeaways you'd like to share with my audience about your product, your vision about what it can mean for them, anything that comes to mind in terms of the big picture ideal of this concept.
Yeah, I mean the big picture is we want people to succeed. We want people to have a good life, to have a better life, and and to be as extroverted into the world as possible. We
Hmm.
want people, because when you put your attention on something other than yourself, you're going to feel better. You're going to feel better. You're going to attract more positive attention and energy. More people will be drawn to you. But if you're walking around and you're concerned about your hair and you're self-conscious about how you look, you're going to start hiding. You're going to start, maybe you're not going to stand up as you're going to start kind of trying to hide away or make sure people don't look at you in a certain way. And when you have your attention on yourself like that, it's hard to move forward and create a positive impact in your life and in your world. But when you're, holding your head up strong and you're standing up straight and you walk into a room with that power and that confidence and that focus because you have your attention on someone else, your life changes and
Hmm.
the life of people around you changes. I mean, we all hear stories of that like politician or that celebrity or that church leader who it's like they say like, yeah, when I was talking to them, I felt like I was the only person in the room. And
Mm.
that's because that person is not thinking about themselves. They're not
Hmm.
worried about how they look or how they're being perceived. Their focus is outward, and our goal is to get your focus outward and
Mm.
off yourself.
Wow, I love that. I'm thinking about the work you're doing. I always ask my guests to share how they plan to protect their nest. So when you think about my nest and rope acronym, nutrition, exercise, less stress, more sleep, how we
Mhm.
think, recovering from trauma. The rope is for relationships. We talked about microbiome, so the organisms.
Mhm.
Uh, the P is for pollutants. That's the toxins we talked about.
Yeah,
And the
very,
E
very
is
important.
yeah, and the E is for life experiences and protecting our emotions. So when you think about that acronym and its various components, where in the next 12 months are you going to be putting a little bit of your focus to help protect your nest?
Ooh, good question. Um, well, you know, I talk tough, but I talk tough for myself as well as for everybody else. Like I talk tough to remind myself because it's a discipline. I stay up too late. I know that. I'm
Mm.
tired all the time. I don't sleep great because I go to bed too late. And
Hmm.
I know that since I don't sleep as great as well as I'd like to, that when I go to bed earlier, it doesn't matter that I don't sleep great because I will accumulate enough sleep regardless that when I wake
Hmm.
up, I'm fresh. And I know that, but there's a discipline that's out in that area of my life. And it's just a discipline. It's just
Mm.
like I can excuse it away, but it's a discipline. I know that I need to be in bed between 9 and 9:30,
Hmm.
period. Regardless.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what
Yeah.
time I get home, doesn't matter what I say. I know that I need to do that because I wake up at 5:45. So I
Yeah.
know that I need to be in bed by that time to
Yeah.
function with maximum focus and maximum energy.
That's
And
right.
I let that discipline slide. So that's one of
Yes.
my also, emotions. I'm a person living in the world,
That's right.
so I'm constantly like, dealing with that as well in terms of like, it's an acceptance factor. If you're
Hmm.
feeling like angry or mad or concerned or worried, a lot of it I find is just accepting that and not trying to fight it or keep it at bay. Just be like, this is where I am now. Okay, now what is this? What is this? Why is this happening to me? What is this trying to reveal about myself? And
Right.
how can I ride this wave forward in my life and see where it takes me? Because it's going to
Mhm.
lead somewhere. Everything's leading somewhere. There's always a path going somewhere. It's just what path? How are you gonna step into it? And not stepping into it is the wrong choice. You got to step into it, even if it's
That's
the
right.
wrong path. You got to
Mm,
step into it.
mm,
There's this great quote by Roosevelt where he says, "The best thing you can do is the right choice. The
mm,
next best thing you can do is the wrong choice, and the
mm,
absolute worst thing you could do is nothing."
mm,
And I love that because he doesn't say that making the bad choice is the wrong thing. He says making the wrong choice is the next best thing. He doesn't say it's bad to make a wrong choice, it's the next best thing.
mm,
And I thought that's so right on because the worst periods in my life are those periods when I'm in an indecision, when I'm stuck. When I'm stuck, it's because I'm not making a decision. When I'm
mm,
confused, it's because I'm not making a decision. When I'm nervous and panicked, it's because I'm not making a decision on something in my life.
mm.
So,
That's wonderful. You remind me, my mom, when I probably was in high school, and I was kind of accustomed to my mom making decisions on my behalf.
mhm.
But then she got to a point where she said, no, you need to make the decision. And that was tough because it's easy to just not make a decision or let somebody do it for you, right?
It's so easy.
But
It's so easy. Yeah, it's true.
but if we don't do that, then we can't find our path, our purpose, our success. You just got to do it. So I appreciate those words. I could probably cut up various parts of this podcast interview and just make video shorts because you have dropped some very critical nuggets. I love that quote. And I
Yeah.
just think it's so important that people not be afraid to do something. Doing nothing is never the right answer. So I've been so impressed with your company that I decided to make an affiliate link so that when people are interested in hair restoration, I'll be able to point them to your company. So I'll make sure to leave the link in the notes to the podcast and the video so we can get people to learn about your company. Any other places people can find the work you guys are doing other than through that link?
No, it's just that link which will lead people to morehairnaturally.com. That's it.
Absolutely. Well, let me say this, Mahryah. First of all, I love your name.
Thank you very much.
Love your
I
name for sure.
blame my parents.
So, yes, yeah, we'll shout out to the parents, right?
I know, but I'm
So
saying that.
that's right. That's right. So it's so funny. I was with a friend of the family was looking at baby names with my wife, and I was looking at the list, and it was kind of nice to reflect on that, especially when your kids are in their 20s. So
Yeah.
it's been very interesting. So anyway, I want to thank you so much for providing hope for people. I hope people who hear this episode, really, if they feel they need this, that they take advantage of it. I know, although I've gotten accustomed to having a short haircut, it's nice to have options. It's nice to know that if I wanted to, go into my old look, I still have that opportunity. So I really love that, and I just think I want to provide that to the rest of the world. So thank you so much for coming to my podcast, and I'm looking forward to working with you guys in the future.
Yeah, it was great. It was great being here and it was fun talking to you and nice meeting you.
Absolutely. So, for those who are checking out this episode, there are so many of us, as I've just shared, who have really given up the possibility of restoring the hair they've lost. But thankfully, today's guest has restored some hope that we don't have to rely on chemically created hair products, but instead we have a natural option here that'll not only help us restore our hair, but maintain it. So if you know anybody who would like to benefit from this episode, share the episode, and even better, share the link that I'll be sharing in the notes so you can check out this great product. If you're intrigued and you have more questions, make sure to share your thoughts in the comments, and I'll make sure to get to Mahryah to get those questions answered that you're seeking. I appreciate you, and thank you for coming to today's episode. And until the next episode, continue to be safe, be well, and continue to protect your nest. You've been listening to Protecting Your Nest with Dr. Tony Hampton. For more, visit drtonyhampton.com.